I just want to say, I wear two hats, one of a carer and also an employer. As a carer, I feel one should be care and compassionate when you employ them. But as an employer, I want to say, one should not be judgmental. Thank you.
Industrial estate. I was talking about that only. My neighbors. I've gone to that.
Isn't that
Vicky
and even the concentration of CII. Do you network with them?
No, I have not.
But wouldn't it be, Vandana, wouldn't that be a very good local initiative to do at a state level?
See, FICCI and CII are very, very large organizations. That can be the next step. But like you say, with the Ambattur Industrial Estate, you started there. That's again a very strong body.
Yes.
You should begin there.
Ours is Mogafair Industrial Association. We've done a presentation also to them once. We called all the people and we talked about it. But as I said,
I have a question. It's not a question, it's more of a discussion as you talked about tax exemption and some incentives required. As we know that Government of India has this incentive scheme for giving some provident fund thing which is for employers who employ disabled people, which
I'm not aware of it.
yeah, that is the question. I mean, it has been launched I think 2 years ago, but there's hardly any takers because the awareness level is so low. And Government of India have an incentive scheme for employers who employ disabled people, and the incentive scheme is, there's a large number of money allocated for it, but it's underutilized because no one hardly, there's no takers, no one hardly ever even asks for it.
No, is it tax concession? What is it? Is it tax concession or the funds given?
Not funds, it's towards the Provident Fund. I just wanted to ask you because in a recent meeting with Sri Mukul Yasnik, we went for some other discussions and he specifically said that I'm very worried that this scheme is not working and there's no takers, and can you give us suggestions of how to improve this? And this is something the minister says that he wants suggestions himself. And so, I mean, people like you who are actually employing can give us feedback so that we can tell them that this is the things that the employers want, because this kind of schemes are normally taken without consultation with the people who are employing, or I mean, it's really a government decision. So that's why there's no, and the money is underutilized, and it's hardly there's no takers for it, so it's just lying there. So
Provident fund means what?
For the employees' problem.
It's employees provident fund, they give that money to the, because the companies do not have to pay, the government pays that.
On their behalf.
Yeah. So, but how can we improve on that also? That is
not publicized. They must publicize it first.
We don't know. That's what I'm saying.
They should publicize.
They say we'll publicize. There are very big ads that are coming out. I know in Bengali papers also I've seen very big ads, but it comes as ads maybe in once a year, and it actually does not cater to the people who are employing it.
Janaki is nodding. So do you have some info?
Yeah. Next thing.
Or maybe I can just.
Presentation, so I'm just going to share some thoughts with you. Just to pick up from this whole Employee Provident Fund thing, I represent an organization called Ability Foundation. We are a cross-disability organization based in Chennai. And our work is really to ensure that people with disabilities are included in all aspects of life. So whether it is leisure, employment, education, we believe that there is place for everyone in the community that we live in, and therefore there should be for people with disabilities as well. So we are a little atypical as an organization, as an NGO. We don't run a school, we don't run a home. We believe there are people who are doing excellent work in all those areas, so we really do a lot of referral services as far as that is concerned. But our area is really in the area of information, so we work with media, publishing. Once in 2 years we do an International Disability Film Festival, for example. We do public programs which are basically aimed at changing the perception of people towards people with disabilities. So very central to our way of thinking is really that you need to work with attitude, attitude, attitude. And I think that irrespective of which disability you're talking about, and when I say cross disabilities, it's also true that by and large the people who come to us are those with physical disabilities, but that doesn't mean that we work only with people with physical disabilities. But the issue at its very core always to my mind remains that of attitude. So apart from the area of information dissemination, advocacy, working to ensure the policies are in place for people with disabilities, a very important area for us over the last few years has become the area of training and employment. Today we work with a little over 220 companies across India, promoting the idea of equal opportunity employment. A lot of that work is to do with actually working with employers to make them aware, to sensitize them, to handhold them through the process of actually recruiting. It also involves working with job seekers who come to us to make sure that they are ready and in sync with what the market is demanding. One of the things that we do apart from round-the-year placement services is also an annual job opportunities fair. We call it employability. The idea is really to bring to one place equal opportunity, open-minded employers and a whole pool of people with disabilities who are ready for the job market. When we began the employment fair in 2004, typically we had most of our candidates coming in from Tamil Nadu. Most of our employers were IT and ITES companies, because logically for us that was the place to begin. After all, we were in Chennai and technology didn't care whether you could see or hear or walk or whatever, it just didn't matter. But as every year went by, and in the last one, which was a year and a half ago, our candidates today come from 21 states across India. They make that journey to Chennai at their own expense. We're not able to support them in any way with that. Our employers represent almost every spectrum of industry. So you're looking at logistics, retail, banking, hospitality, apart from IT and ITS, of course, but almost every sector of industry is actually represented there. I think what it has told us is that the time for hiring and the time for disability is now. It's a good time that we live in, because people more than ever before are open to the idea that we can recruit people with disabilities without necessarily compromising the bottom line. I think it's a good time also because more than ever before, people with disabilities are getting out there. Whether it means that they're getting better educated, whether it means that the better institutions are turning out students year after year who are eager, ambitious, are aware that they want a job, that they need to support their families. So it's a good time in that sense. So I believe that somewhere if we can marry the two, the needs of the employer and the ambitions and the aspirations of the people with disabilities, perhaps this is when we take that next leap forward. Having said that, of course, we know that it's not so simple. At one level, disability is not a job qualification. Right? People are not hiring disabilities. We would have deaf people here, blind people there. People are hiring people they require for certain jobs. And the issue is, do we have people with disabilities who meet those requirements? So first and foremost, I mean, the philosophy with which we approach employment is that it's an HR issue. We don't see employment as a CSR initiative at all. As far as we are concerned, employers need to fill in vacancies and cover various jobs in their organizations, and we need to provide the right candidates. The disability is really a secondary part of it, as far as we are concerned. Of course, it's also our responsibility to ensure that the disability does not come in the way of the job. Obviously, that's a given. But that becomes very, very important because it marks, in my mind, a very subtle difference in the way the employer will look at that person with disability. If, for example, you go and say, this is a person, just by way of an example, this is a person, say, who is visually impaired. And then you say, you know, he has the following skills and so on. As opposed to saying, here is a person with the following skills. And by the way, he happens to be a person with visual impairment. Because whatever you do, that really will underline the attitude of that employer to that person with disability. And as much as we're struggling to move away from this whole idea of we should not look at disability as a charity issue, that it's so much of a welfare issue, it continues to be after so many years and so on, the fact of the matter is that we in the disability sector, unless we approach something as critical as employment from a perspective which is not charity and which is not welfare, there's only that much that we will be doing. We will still be doing the rounds of asking people to help with a job. Can you take on this person to fill in this thing? This person has this problem. Do you think you can help? So at the end of the day, the employer feels good. You've done a good deed, you're patting yourself on the back, which is great, I'm not sort of denying that. But it does not support the movement forward for equal employment opportunities for people with disabilities. And that is very, very important. So in terms of philosophy, I think the way that we approach employment, and I think it's fantastic. I was just so inspired listening to Ratna talking about chromatics. But that's a happy, happy is not the right word, but it's a marriage of someone who is sensitive, who is aware, and is also employed. And you understand the needs of an employer. But if you look at that big wide world out there, everyone does not, I'm not talking about sensitivity, but awareness per se may not be there. So when we are talking, for example, and just to give you one example, quite recently we actually placed a boy who would come to us, trained in IT, he was an engineer, but was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and then came to us for a job, and excellent communication skills, as you said, and so on, and we placed him. And fortunately, we placed him in an organization where the person who was recruiting happened to be a person who was very well versed with disability and knew all about, we didn't have to explain more than necessary. But even there, part of the problem that we encountered, he was very good, but he was willing and ready to do a certain kind of work. But because he was so good at communication skills, his employers believed that he could suddenly be leapfrogged to the next level. He wasn't ready for that. So that level of awareness needs to be there with every employer. So for me, when I look at the whole idea of employment, parallelly it is important to work continuously with employers, because disclosure is very important, isn't it? See, that's another question. Do you disclose your disability or do you not? So when it comes to an individual going on his or her own, I know the reality is that when you say you have a disability, the chances are much higher that you won't even be called for an interview, because the assumptions have been made. The employer believes you can't do it. And we are talking here, of course, about mental illness being the least preferred. And it's true, but as far as I'm concerned, there's a whole spectrum out there. So even if you go to an employer and say, employer visually impaired person, there's no way that they're going to look at it today more than before. So the time is coming. It will happen. But the point is that you need to be aware that this person has this disability, and you need to disclose it, because at the end of it, you need accommodations as well. So you can't really ask for accommodations such as that you might need time off every week, you may need to take unscheduled breaks and so on, without being upfront with the employer about the disability. But I think it's very important even there to actually decide how you are going to disclose and the nature of your disclosure. For example, just slapping a label and saying that I have this disability won't help you at all. It'll probably be the reverse. For example, if you say mental illness, the stigma attached to mental illness and many disabilities is so high that just reading the word will trigger this alarm bell in the employer who says, why am I creating a problem for myself? Whereas, if you were to actually describe the situations the person deals with, so these are the issues the person has to confront, these may be the accommodations you would need to provide. Of course, having built up the case for good skills, strong, whatever the communication skills or whatever skills that person may have, that to my mind is very, very critical. So disclosure, yes, and obviously if the person goes to an organization like us, the employer is aware that there is a disability. But what is the nature of that disability becomes very important. So even when we talk to candidates who come to us, we try and encourage them to talk about what are the issues that they may have to keep the employer abreast of. That becomes very, very important. So on the one hand, working continuously with employers to make them aware of the potential of people with disabilities, and we know it's not a cookie cutter world, so one size doesn't fit all. So each person has to be looked at individually, particularly when you're looking at disabilities like, say, multiple disabilities or mental illness or a person with intellectual disabilities and so on. You have to work with the individual. So how do you actually work around the nature of that disability? What is the kind of disclosure you make to the employer? And what is the kind of sensitivity you're building within that organization? Large organizations are good at one level because they hire large numbers of people. But our experience has also been that large organizations are sometimes places where you are completely lost. And therefore, sometimes medium and smaller organizations, particularly for some disabilities, work a little better. Because there's a certain greater involvement of the person you're reporting to. There's a greater involvement of the CEO. Because sometimes what happens in large organizations is the CEO is probably extraordinarily sensitive, but you need to do awareness at various levels of the organization, particularly the group with which that person is going to work. That makes all the difference. So, so this whole thing of moving away to an empathetic kind of environment which enables you to work, a very critical part of it is really working with the employer to make them aware. The other side of it, of course, to my mind is, and our experience has been, is to continuously work with the job seeker. One of the great benefits that our job fair employability actually had, because even from the very first year, we were always very worried, that a job fair means you give such a sense of hope to so many people who are making the effort to come there. And we tell employers that we are not asking you to recruit every single person who comes. What it does for you, it makes you aware that there are qualified people out there, number one. And if you find the right person, great, but you will continuously think about it. And what it does for the person with disability, because we worried that what if not a single person gets a job? What's going to happen? But in the very first year, we had parents and families and friends who came with the candidates coming and telling us, this is the first opportunity that people have had even to face an interview. So that has been such a step forward. So getting a job is the next step. But this is a boy I never believed would even go to school. He completed schooling. I never thought he would go to college. He finished college. Then I thought there's no way anyone is going to give him a job. And today there are 5 companies who want to interview him. Not just collect his CV, but actually interview him. So that was a great sense of hope. So we realized that there was that huge gap there. But the point was, more than even getting jobs, what the job fairs did was gave the job seeker a benchmark, a sense of a reality check. What is it that the market is actually looking for? Which I think was very, very important. Because at one level you have been brought up all your life being told, you cannot see, you cannot walk, you cannot hear, you cannot do. And no one is going to do this and you're going to be a burden to us all your life, we're going to have to support you, blah, blah, blah. Or you have families saying, you will do this, you will be able to do, and so on. But when you encourage people to achieve, there must also be some kind of reality check as far as the world around you is concerned. For example, that I have a qualification, but I also need this additional skill to be able to break into this industry. Or I'm good with my degree, but perhaps I need to work on communication skills a little more. It tells you more than my standing in front of you will say, you need to speak better, you need to do this, you need to be confident, etc., etc. 2 interviews, 3 interviews, and you get a sense of it. So in terms of your own aspiration level, it became a very good thing. So I think working with candidates and job seekers continuously, parallelly, is also very, very important. And because we're talking mental illness here, I just wanted to say that a very important input for us as an organization becomes the quality of the report which comes to us from the medical person. So whether it is the psychiatrist or the doctor who gives it, what is the kind of explanation and picture that we get of this person becomes very, very useful in terms of how we are going to actually place them. So that role of that person is very important. It's not just a 2-line thing which is being written off and people come to us and say, I've got something, but it must say something to me. And if I cannot understand the extent of your need in terms of accommodation, how am I going to actually communicate this to the employer? So that role becomes very important because we're talking specifically in the context of mental illness. The other point I wanted to just touch on, and I'm happy to take questions after that, is we are a little wary of this whole idea of identification of jobs. For us, that's a very limiting thing. I am saying that you need to have affirmative action, you need to be able to provide a space where people with disabilities can get jobs. But the moment you say A, B, C, D, these are the jobs that can be done, what about all those other jobs that you could potentially do? Why are we closing the door? So one of the things, for example, we tell employers often, and quoting this guy called Richard Pimentel, is that there is no good job for a person with disability in your organization. But there is a good person with disability for every job in your organization. So there's a different way of looking at it, that potentially, and theoretically at least, our premise must be that any job can be done by a person with disability. What the qualifications, skills, etc. that you bring to bear, of course, will determine whether you're right for it or not. Otherwise, what will tend to happen, or has tended to happen, is that employers are already asking us, can you please list the jobs that can be done? I'm saying there's no way that I'm listing the jobs. You tell me all the jobs for which you are looking for people. If we have people to fit that job, we will provide you that. So that's a bit of a grey area, which, for example, the government has been doing it for years. So we know lift operators, this category, etc., and so on and so forth. I personally find that a very limiting kind of premise with which to work, because if you're saying equal opportunity employment, at the end of the day, it's a level playing field. Whether you provide reasonable accommodation in terms of technology, assistive devices, unscheduled breaks, whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, you're putting people at par with one another. And therefore, You need to ensure that the job universe is also out there at a level playing field as well. So that is something that becomes very, very important. So as I said, our work, and that's really been over the last, since 97 roughly, has really said we feel there's a lot of room for optimism. We feel that this is a time when we can move forward, but equally it's a time where consistently work has to be done. If you work with a company and people go through a period of evolution, for example, typically, the first time we meet a company, they ask us that we are willing to hire disability, we want to look at hiring disability, maybe someone with a slight limp, little orthopedic impairment, because you need, that's where you begin. And then slowly when you introduce the idea that you're looking for a programmer, and it could be someone who's hearing impaired, and you place a person, and you're happy with that person, then the door is already open for the next step. So for us, for a long time, we used to say the glass ceiling was visual impairment in the context of physical disabilities. But today we are placing blind programmers as well. It's not that every visually impaired person is getting a job, but it establishes a case that if you have the qualification on the one hand, and you're willing to work and go the extra mile, and you have on the other hand an employer whom we have worked with and made aware, it is possible to bridge that divide between people with disabilities and this workplace, where today more than ever before there are so many jobs. So if there are so many jobs, and if the rate of attrition is so high, we should be able to place people in whatever kinds of jobs they may be, from packaging to the highest level at any organization. It is possible to do it. But we need to put in all these, and obviously organizations working together. Sometimes today I have a situation where I don't have candidates for a job. I have 3 people calling and saying, I'm looking for candidates. So there is a great need for skill development, there's a great need for working with job seekers to make sure that the pool is available. But opportunities are there today more than ever before. Employers, are they all sensitive? No. But can you make them sensitive with every person whom you place there and make employed? I believe so. I believe so. But we need to do it. It's not something that we can do by us. Everyone does it. So every person who's placed. But as I said, a lot of it depends on, and the